And now I'm going to introduce our delicious night speaker. Our speaker this evening will offer an expansive perspective on the avenues that open through dreaming. Dr. Lee Irwin is a professor in the Religious Studies Department of the College of Charleston, where he teaches world religions with an emphasis on Native American traditions, Western esotericism, hermeticism, contemporary spirituality, mystical cosmology, and transpersonal religious experience as related to dreams, visions, and paranormal perception. He is vice president of the Association for the Study of Esotericism and a guiding voice for the Seven Pillars House of Wisdom. He has been workshop leader and group facilitator for over 25 years, particularly in the areas of visionary cosmology and the development of the sacred human. Author of many, many wonderful books and articles, his latest honor is his invitation to be keynote speaker at the prestigious Internal Association for the Study of Dreams this June. On a personal note, I myself have had wonderful instructors on the way to getting my master's degree, but never have I had a better teacher than Dr. Irwin, from whom I took a course a couple of years ago. For those of you interested in furthering your education or broadening your appreciation of various spiritual disciplines, I cannot recommend a professor more highly. In fact, several of his students are here tonight because they honor him so much. Want to raise your hands? Look, how many students. Thank you for sharing your research and insights with us, Dr. Irwin. Welcome.
Whoa, okay. Well, so this is going to be a journey, and I'm going to show slides here. And my advice to you is don't read them, okay? I'll read them. So you don't really need to worry about reading them, because I think it can be a distraction, but meditate on the pictures. That they're just meant to be there as a stimulus. And I'm going to go along reading this, and also expanding and developing some theoretical concerns I have in commentary on what I'm actually reading, okay? And then I'll stop at a certain point, and then we'll take a break. So it is the purpose of this talk to get it right. Okay, so it is the purpose of this talk to explore a typology of dreaming contents, suggestively linked to variable states in the formulation of a theory that dreams are a basis for psychic and spiritual development. So let me unpack that for a minute. So the problem is, I don't think we have very good typological descriptions of dreams. We tend to dream, there's a lot of different kinds of dreams, but we don't really have a system or a way to organize those dreams into types that can be consistently studied and analyzed, except maybe we talked about normal dreaming and big dreams, but I didn't ever feel that was a satisfactory way of organizing. So, I'm going to offer a typology here for you to think about and see what if this you find this interesting and engaging in terms of dream practice. And in higher dreaming types, dreams can provide metaphysical insights relevant to transpersonal theories that support higher domain perception. I think dreaming is a form of training. I think that if we get deep into dreaming and we study it and we engage our dreaming minds in a deep way by sorting the kind of dream experiences we have, we can definitely develop and heighten our perceptions and our awareness. So that's really, I'm going to try to build the model to show how I think that happens in our dreaming spontaneously. So I conceptualize 4 primary areas of dreaming types, representing neither explicit contents nor state-specific qualities, but general features of description of a class of phenomena in support of a theory of pansentience as operative through in such dreams. That's the entire talk in a single sentence. Okay, so I think there's 4 primary areas. I'm going to look at each one of the 4 and discuss them briefly. But you cannot do it in terms of contents and states. That's one of the big problems in dreaming. You can talk about a type of dream, but then if you try to say, and these type of dreams have X contents, it really doesn't work. And if you try to say, well, then you have a certain state that you're going to be in when you have this kind of dream experience, that doesn't work either. Both are highly variable. So all we can do in terms of typologizing is to offer some general descriptive features and see if we can't fit our experiences actually into those kind of categories. So that's what I'm doing. And these are the 4 types. Rational, normative rational dreaming, mythic imaginal dreaming, psychic intuitive dreaming, and mystical ontological dreaming. The first 2 of these, I think, are all familiar to all of you, and not something that I'm going to spend a lot of time on. So I'll kind of go along rather quickly. I forgot to turn the slides. There is a slide here, okay. So let's start with the normative rational dreaming. So these are like the kind of dreams we have that everyone would recognize, and the correlation would be that when you have this dream, you can relate it to your daily life experience. There's not too big of a gap between the dream and the experiences you have that you identify as your normative life. So I'll call these normative rational. They have 3 constructive vectors, which is pretty much part of cognitive study of dreaming. A lot of this language comes directly out of cognitive studies. So if it doesn't sound quite familiar, that's where it's coming from. There's the pre-dream condition of the dreamer, based in conscious thought, wishes, feelings, ideation, values, social context, intentions, intuition. So it's what you bring to the dream. So that's formative. Then there is the dream proper, as a dynamic cross-modal incorporating 3 different fundamental elements: your bodily aspects, your somatic feelings, your sensations, your lingual expressions, so you talk in a dream, you have conversation that's got a lingual element, and also there's an imagistic visual element in which you see and imagine scenes and visions and so on. And those 3 are usually operative together, and so you can have the dream where you feel it, you talk, you interact, and you're in a scene that you can identify. And this scene represents for you the scenes that are familiar to you in your everyday life. We're not stepping way out there. We're just taking a little step into the dream. Even if it might be a little weird and strange, but still it's enough that you can kind of recognize the context there. And then there's a psychological context, that is the personal, diffuse, intrinsic, or subliminal, felt significations or meanings, that the dream has significance, it has value, it is worthy of study. Even if you can't grasp it right away, there's something in there calling you to like look at this and to grapple with it a bit. And this includes unstated influences that reflect everyday life and relations. So this is like normative. And this is the kind of dreaming that I think is most people engage in. And this normative dreaming is something that is theoretically uncovered in the conventions of normal therapy. So you have a dream, you get involved in dream interpretation, you bring theory to the dream, and you unpack it in terms of both your everyday life and the vectors I've mentioned, and also what is emerging through the dream to you, so for better understanding. And the consequence of that is some kind of a therapeutic outcome. When you understand the dream, you have insights. The insights further your growth and development, initiating a forward motion, as it were, in terms of your growth. And it's accessible and it's normative, and you need a dream journal, you need to record them, you need to think about them, but you're engaging the dreaming in a normative sense. And I speculate that 80 to 90% of dreaming is this type. Like, this is the big basket in which I think most dreaming fits quite well. Functional facilitation of memory consolidation. This is cognitive theory. What do dreams do? Whether you interpret them or not, they fulfill functions. It doesn't. If you don't interpret it, it doesn't really mean you're not getting something out of the dream. cognitive studies have shown pretty clearly at this point that there's a number of factors that you gain through dreaming, even if you never remember a dream ever. For example, memory consolidation. I mean, dreaming helps stimulate and maintain memory. It's fundamental to memory maintenance. Continuity theory, I don't know if you're familiar with continuity theory. It's the theory about how my dreaming life and my subjectivity relates positively to my social life and my collective relations and my interactions with others. There's continuity. And dreaming helps establish the continuity between your inner life and your outer life as well, and arising from a need for the resolution of everyday concerns, worries, hopes, goals, relations, and so on. So it's functional. So you gain a benefit by dreaming no matter what. Okay, that's the good news, and you can enhance that by gaining interpretive engagement with a dream, and therefore you can enhance the learning process out of the dream in this normative rational idea. However, dreams reflect polysemy and multiplicity. So they can't be reduced. This is why dictionaries are useless. Dream dictionaries don't work. That's because it's differentiated according to the needs of the individual, and it is multifaceted, and so you have to work with it to understand your symbolism. I dream of an eagle, you dream of an eagle. Who knows what the eagle means until we get down to it and start struggling to try to better understand. So they have no single interpretation as mental life acts to create complex synesthesia, bringing together different cognitive modes to enhance your awareness and your insights, and manifest primarily through metaphors. So dreams are like metaphors. I think if you're going to take away something in terms of normative dreaming, think metaphor. It's a comparison. This dream as compared to my real life. And what's the link? What is the comparative idea? Because it will frame one situation in terms of another situation, and offer some kind of comparative relationship. It's like what Wittgenstein says, it's learning to see through a different lens, your own life and your experience. You need to see as, so to speak, the metaphorical idea and social relations. So this is like all normative. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any more time there. Okay, just go on to some of these other types, which I think are maybe a little less familiar, but we're not quite there yet. So we'll get to a little bit more. So here's a second type, the mythic imaginal dreaming. This is dreaming, I'd say, and these, by the way, these percentages, they're like totally off the cuff. Okay, I'm just reaching out there, going, okay, 5 to 7. I'm using my own dream. I've been keeping a dream journal since 1968, and I'm still keeping it. And I write my dreams down all the time. And so I have a huge dream journal. And so I'm saying about 5 or 7% of those dreams have this mythic content to it, and offer a little bit different of engagement with the dream experience. So this is dreams that result in memorable, vivid archetypal scenes, like the picture I've got up there, mythically constructed in either positive or negative scenarios. So just because it's mythic doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be good. It could be a nightmare and still be mythic in its nightmarish quality. Negative scenarios along a vector ranging from nightmares to more positive encounters with figures often reflecting the spiritual or belief world, including fictive tales of the dreamer. That's an interesting motif, the fictive tale. It's like, so you go to a movie, a mythic movie, and you come home with images in your mind from this mythic encounter you've had through the movie, and you dream about it. And you dream about the movie's impact. And maybe it has a profound impact on you, dreaming-wise. Or you're reading a novel that you're really into. Maybe it's sci-fi, or maybe it's fantasy or something, and it has a profound impact on you. And that actually is formative to the dream scenario in what I'll call the fictive sense. So it's not actually lived experience, but it's a shared image and mythic content that's out there in the culture and being animated as a result. So there can be not just your beliefs in your spiritual worldview, but also the kind of fictive encounters you have. Such dreams reflect archetypal themes or mythopoetic images and I'm quoting Hunt here, associated with numinous, uncanny emotion that goes beyond all prior waking experience. So it has an unusually strong and powerful affect that engages your attention, and even though you don't know what it is, it's got a mythic content to it, and you're drawn right into it deeply, and you're there to try to understand and to unpack that. There's not much in this talk about Jung, by the way, but here's a quote from Jung. Okay. The collective unconscious appears to consist of mythological motifs or primordial images, for which reason the myths of all nations are its real exponents. So yeah, Jung clearly brought mythic dreaming onto the table and spent a lot of time working and unpacking the mythic dimension. So I don't think there's anything I'm saying here that's unique or new. I'm just sort of summarizing for you, so you can see where I'm eventually headed here. A mythic imaginal dreams, the creative constructive imagination. So there's a thought. What's the role of imagination in dreaming? And how does imagination play into the mythic construction of dreams? It's not just as though we're passive receptors and turn on the television set in our head. It's that we are creative actors engaging the world, and we are creatively constructing the mythic context that shows up in the dream, even if it is at a subliminal or subconscious level. So imagination has to play a significant role. We need an ontology of the imagination. We don't have it yet, and I'm hoping it will evolve as we go along here. So constructive imagination taps the collective imagery, persons or situations charged with strong emotional content, recontextualizing dream scenes into a more mythic scenario, depicting a wide range of culturally defined archetypes of human experience. So yes, the dream can trigger the archetypal response, which is then tailored to the individual consciousness of the dreamer. And then the person faces the challenge of understanding their relation to the collective imagery. The fictive element as an expression of imaginal intelligence, and I really do think we need a theory of imaginal intelligence. That imagination is not simply a power of mind, but that there's a capacity we have that is able to reconstruct and re-understand the world through its imaginative processes as a sign of intelligence, not just some side, it's fiction, it's fantasy or imagination, but I mean core intelligence tapped to our imaginative capacities and functions. And this imaginal intelligence reveals dreams as creative constructions and a deepening response to social cultural issues that support, encourage, inhibit, or repress development. So that a mythic dream doesn't necessarily unpack it. It may drag you in, so to speak, to the cultural conflicts that surround us and force you into it, maybe as a way of making you think and reposition yourself. You can be drawn in. It's kind of the dark side of the mythic of the mythic experience. And then I say the central image idea of the dream synthesizes and challenges mundane associations, presents a new semantic context. So you've got to do the interpretive work. There are new semantic contexts, encouraging possible ontological insights. Now, we're going to hold off on that. I'll be coming back to the ontological insights, okay? But I believe that the mythic encounter taps something very deep. And so it's asking us to look beyond the surface, look into the collective, look through the collective into a deeper ground of becoming an existential encounter. So we're going to have to work our way there, okay? So I'll just put that out there right now. The idea image calls the dreamer out of the ordinary and into the mythic in order to reveal dialectic tensions between the individual and collective pattern. Typical to such dreams are magical or heroic circumstances, or nightmares, more fearful, demonic, violent personations. Other scenes may present joyful, angelic spirit beings, talking animals, tricksters, boundary figures. I mean, these are all the kind of things you see in mythic dreaming. These are the kind of personifications and so on you can encounter. And also there's the issue of Titanic dreaming. Hunt has been writing a lot about Titanic dreaming, which is imagery that is really, really powerfully kinesthetic. So people talk about the emotion of the dream, but this is going beyond the ordinary emotion. It's like extremely intense emotion, pain, fear. You fall off the cliff, you know. You have ecstasy, you have dismemberment. It's extreme, and they call that Titanic dreaming. And I see that as mythic, as part of a mythic process of transformation. So another problem in the encounter with the mythic is there's a wide variety of states. And this is where I choose to introduce the states problem, because let's say you have a really profound mythic dream, yes? And this dream has strong and powerful emotional content to it. And you're living it, you're experiencing it, you're embodying it. What's your state of mind? Is it ordinary? I want to argue that it is not ordinary. I think mythic dreaming calls us to extraordinary states of mind. It calls us to enhanced awareness, altered states that are sometimes very difficult to understand and interpret because we're knocked out of the ordinary box of our everyday mind. And we're drawn into this deeper, what I'll call mythic state, which is receptive to both subconscious and hyperconscious contents as altered states. Now, I'm not going to get into hyperconsciousness right now. I'm going to come back to that later. But I just want to say that's a boundary in which something is profound, is emerging, that hasn't really become embodied yet. It's not from the past. It's from the future, as it were. It's in the process of embodiment. It's coming into being. So I call that hyperconscious. And as a basis for dream manifestations of surprising, challenging, and sometimes disturbing psychic contents. Such dreams are commonly symbolic, visionary, intensely metaphorical, as they image the condensations of shared psychic life, both personally and collectively. So it's not like we're dreaming it ourselves in isolation from the psychic life of the world and people around us. We're actually engaging. It's kind of like, take racism, for example. Okay, racism is a big problem. You know, we struggle with racism in terms of people's attitudes and things. So what if you have a dream in which there's some kind of a racist theme in there, right? That's you, from my point of view, that's you encountering the nature of the collective and in an attempt to make a transformation, to engage it in some way that would result in some kind of response and transformation from you that requires you to lift your consciousness out of the collective into a more differentiated sense of awareness so that you can bring contribution to this resolution of this problem. But it's going to throw you in the dream right into the middle of it. You know, you think, oh, why did I have that? You know, wow, I thought I got through that. You know, you never get through it. You're always dragged back into it. It's kind of like, okay, you got to keep doing the work because the collective takes tremendous energy for transformation. So this is calling us out of our ordinary mind into non-ordinary states as intensive, deeply felt, passionate encounters that challenge everyday awareness with a shift toward collective issues. It's not just, this is the thing, it's about collective. It's not just my issues. It's not just about me. Dreams are not just about the individual. I don't believe that at all. Dreams are about the individual, but they're also about the collective. They're also about how we engage psychically with the collective and how the collective is in the process of transformation through our own dreaming experience. The dreams are the basis for encountering what we don't maybe encounter with the full courage that we might in waking states, but the dream brings us into the drama that's trying to be transformed around us culturally. So you have a mythic collective dream, you're just getting deeper into the strata, so to speak, of what forms our identity collectively and in a collective sense. Feinstein and Krippner have written on the relevance of mythic dreams for the formation and reformation of personal mythology. So this is a good way of thinking about it as intrinsic to dreaming process, knowing one's own story and how one story fits into the story of the collective around you, and being able to negotiate that story in relationship to the other kind of narrative themes that are being worked out collectively is a really important process. And as someone who's been working on his personal mythology for a long time, it never ends. Okay? You just have to keep doing the work and keep working on it. Okay, so are you with me? So that's mythic. Okay, so that should all sound sort of like familiar. Does it sound sort of familiar? Okay, so let's go to the unfamiliar. Okay, so that would be psychic dreaming. Okay, now psychic dreaming, we need a lot more research on it, but psychic intuitive dreaming is based less on the narrative. I'm not talking about the narrative of the story in which the phenomena manifest. I'm talking about the phenomena. Okay, so it's based less on narrative structure and more on manifest activities of psychic ability, actual psychic ability. Okay, not dreams about telepathy, actual telepathy. Okay, that you got to make that cut right there. Usually not consciously operative in waking life. So we say, do you believe in telepathy? Don't answer that question. Okay, if you believe in it or you don't believe in it, it doesn't matter. Okay, because from my point of view, dreaming is an opportunity to exercise telepathic ability, and that capacity is working at the subliminal level. So it's not necessarily because you consciously can do the telepathy thing. It's more like subliminally. There's plenty of dream evidence at this point that there is psychic components that are active in the sleeping state. Research in this area begins with Ullman, Krippner, and Vaughn in the study of dream telepathy at Maimonides' New York Dream ESP laboratory from 62 to 78, which is quite a long run for testing and challenging dream telepathy with very positive results. Krippner comes away from that and says, okay, it's real. We are having telepathic communication in our dreams, even though we're not identifying it as such. It's operative, at least subliminally, and we have evidence that we can prove that. And since Krippner's research, then it has gone on to continue to explore this topic and to find out that other psi capacities are also active in the dreaming state, as noted in paranormal research, though basically limited, and here's the problem, basically limited to narrative accounts by psi dreamers. It's like you can't just turn it on and turn it off. So you say, well, I want to study psi dreaming. Great. So how do you do that? Because the dreamer, particularly if the dreamer is doing operative psi at a subliminal level, can't just will it to happen. You got to create the circumstances that would sort of evoke telepathic or some kind of psi phenomena. That's really challenging, very difficult, okay? So what we end up getting is someone saying, and I'm sure you've all heard this, like, I had a telepathic dream, or I dreamed it, precognition. I dreamed something was going to happen, and it happened. Okay, so that becomes what? A narrative. So now we have a story that's told about the precog. There's no way to test it. There's no way to prove it, but it's still content, okay? And I always like to say, if you get enough anecdotes together, you've got some kind of evidence, okay? So there is a lot of narrative evidence for psi dreaming. And the greatest emphasis, and the researchers put it on lucid dreaming, which I think is kind of a mistake, actually. I'm a lucid dreamer myself, so I understand lucid dreaming. But I would say, I know it's going to sound strange to say it, but I don't think it's psychic. That would be an aside right there if I were to go off on that one. It's like, I think psi dreaming is like, say, 3 to 5%, but dreaming has some implicit psi aspects. But I think that the lucid dream is not the best example of this. I would rather see something more explicitly psychic, like telepathy, precognition, clairvoyance. So you're really actually getting knowledge at a distance, and it's showing up in the dream, and you can verify that. What happens when you have a lucid dream? It's okay, you wake up in the dream, right? But it's like you're in your ordinary state of mind, and you make decisions based on the lucid dream to make things happen in the dream. But it's more like fictive writing, a creative expression of some sort, I don't know if that's psi. I have doubts that that is actually strong evidence for psi perception, whereas actual telepathy or actual precognition or actual clairvoyance or a PK, that's strong evidence. If you can, particularly if you can get veridical provement of that. So in terms of psi dreaming, I distinguish two kinds. And this psi dreaming of two kinds is not in the literature. This is me doing my own thing here. So just go with me. First of all, there's explicit psi. Okay, by explicit psi, I basically mean contents that predominantly match the primary set of features that a given psi content is explicit and refers to those features. So if I say telepathy is mind-to-mind communication, you understand what I mean, right? Okay, if I say precognition is seeing the future, okay, if I say clairvoyance is seeing something at a distance, that's explicit. I'm saying, okay, yes, those are the actually as defined as such, right? Okay, but I don't think that's the actual way that psi works in the dreaming context. Some people are explicit psi dreamers. That's very like advanced dreaming. But many people, I would say most people, are actually working with implicit psi. Implicit psi is a content that has some relationship to a recognizable psi aspect, like say telepathy, but is mixed with other psi perceptions, is not fully consciously telepathy. It's like the person is not really doing telepathy. They're engaging in psi, but it's more like an implicit capacity that's being exercised right at the subliminal threshold and hasn't really become explicit. Here's an example. You dream of somebody, and I won't even say somebody. You have a dream, and in the dream there's a dog, and the dog has an injured leg. Okay? Now you wouldn't call that psychic, would you? You say, if I dreamed of a dog with an injured leg. But then, 2 days later, you found out that a friend of yours actually had a dog with an injured leg. Whoa. Okay, so was that implicit psi? Was there some information being picked up and channeled into the dream in a way that actually reflects maybe the unfolding of explicit ability, but in the dream it didn't come across as I'm having a clairvoyant perception about my friend's dog. It just came across as I'm dreaming about this dog. So that's what I call implicit psi. You know what? I think dreams are filled with implicit psi. I think they are filled with implicit psi. We just can't check it out. It's like, how do you check it out? But I notice in studying my own dreams, I make that connection a lot with people in the world around me based on dream resonance that I'm finding in the dream with events in the world around me. So like implicit is what I'm saying. I think that's very much operative. As a latent feature, not an expression of categorical ability, but an incipient perceptual content, a psychic tendency, some kind of, it's operating, but it's not operating in that really sharp, explicit sense. And we need this theory because people say, oh, I don't have telepathic dreams. And I want to say, yeah, but did you ever get any intuitive information about other people that's in your dream, that's in the scenario? Because if you did, that would be implicit psi. It doesn't have to be this like, I got to hold a sign up and say, I got clairvoyance. It's better like, I had this feeling that there was something happening there to my son and who was off in a distance. And then later, I had that dream, and then later, yeah, it proved to be some resonance there. Not necessarily explicit, because it shows another feature, which makes it really challenging. What if the formative expression of psychic ability is symbolic? What if it's not literal? What if it's not like, okay, so I went with the dog example, right? But what if it's not the literal dog? What if the dream content has symbolic aspects to it that relate to experiences in the world around you, in the collective, but you've got to do the work of reading the symbol. If you're going to talk about the symbol in terms of the mythic dream, let's talk about the symbol in terms of the psychic dream, where you have to figure out how your psyche works. Because I notice that I tend to translate certain kinds of perceptions into certain kinds of symbols. And when I read the symbolic language, which works for me but not for anybody else necessarily, then I've made a link between my psychic capacities and the collective around me. So I think that's quite challenging. It's like I say, it's a kind of mixed bag phenomena where you're blending and weaving side perceptions together with dream experience, and it's all mushed together there, right? And you have to separate and untangle the strands and to see what's actually going on there. I see implicit side content as an ontological ground state. Now this is make the big leap here, because I feel like the fact that we might have a psychic connection that's operative in our dreams implies something much more profound. It doesn't imply psychic ability only. It may say something about ontological, our ontological identity and our deep interconnectedness psychically that's being manifested in those connective dreams. So I feel like this is implicit side is an opening into ontological depths where we can really uncover more profound aspects. And powerful images such as found in mythic dreams may act, this is a thought I have, may act as attractors for pulling psi information into dream context. I've noticed that certain mythic symbols in dreaming can have a powerful effect of attracting, as it were, psychic perceptions. It's hard to explain that exactly, but it's like just think about a dream and think about a really dramatic image in the dream, a really dramatic image. I would like to suggest that those dramatic images instantiate like an attractor field, so to speak, within the collective. It's like it makes an opening to energy and influence that could flow into the dream through the power of this vivid image idea that you've got. And so it becomes like an attractor and becomes very, I think, very profound, actually. It takes a while to see it. You have to really think about the deep imagery and how it connects to the collective in some way. Powerful images such as found in mythic dreams may be attractors, pulling psi information into the dream context. The dream then becomes an interior theater for the exercise of psi capacities in virtual form. I mean, that's one of my key theses. It's that what we're doing. How are we going to learn to be more psychic? Okay? How are we going to get to a point where we're operative psychics? We communicate telepathically. I think we will communicate telepathically in the future more than we do now. But how is it being operationalized? And I say dreaming. The dreams is the perfect medium for the development of these latent psychic abilities if you can bring your attention to it and work with it, and it can really open up the horizon and enhance, so to speak, your psi capacity, at least virtually, in the dream context. You know, maybe not in real life, but virtually, but I think it spills over and into real life it will. So here's my little scenario about lucid dreaming, and I've already mentioned this. It's like, so the lucid dreaming, is that really psi? I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm not impressed. I think it's something else. It's creative, it's interesting, it's fascinating. I like lucid dreaming, but I don't see that as particularly a rich psi productive content. Now we move on to these sort of higher things. Okay, so not only these psychic things, we have lucid dreaming is linked to out-of-body experience. There's a huge literature on out-of-body experience at this point. They've been doing research in paranormal psychology for over 30 years on out-of-body. And so the out-of-body idea is that flying dreams or soul travel, like for example in shamanic literature, are really part of what I would call psychic dreaming. And psychic intuitive, in turn, OBE is linked to subtle body or maybe astral body, a psychic identity capable of separating from the physical body and traveling in a variety of hyperliminal domains shaped by cultural belief and patterns. The subtle body in its paranormal research and psychic development in terms of how it operates in different cultures. I'll leave these books up here for you can just come up and take a look at them. Quite a lot of recent research on subtle body and out of body, and you know we don't have to worry about the literal interpretation because we're in dreams. So we can say, like, how many people in this room have had a flying dream? How many? Okay, like Three-quarters of the room raised their hand, right? Okay, so the exercise of flying in a flying dream may be exercising a psychic capacity linked to subtle body and subtle body experience. And the next step would be out of body. So how many of you have had out of body experiences? Okay, see, half the people in the room. Wow, this is a great group of people. So thank you for that. Okay, so what particular capacity is being exercised there? And I would say it's your deep psychic capacity, and it is detaching itself from the physical body medium. And dreaming, to follow the thesis, dreaming is the perfect context for making that exercise, for practicing, till you get to a point where now we'll find out, we'll make the last cut. How many of you can do out of body without being in a dream and consciously make it happen? See, we still got some people that can do it. That's right. That's exactly right. It's like, okay, and I would say that the development of such capacities is operationally within the dream of a certain type, the so-called intuitive, kind of dreaming. And you might say, well, what's it good for? And I say, I have a good answer for that. It's good for understanding how complex the cosmos is that we live in. And it's not reducible to just a physical reality. It's got multi-dimensions in it. So here's one of the links to multidimensionality. But let's push on to the next level and say, but what about out of body leading to near death? Okay, now there's been a huge research on near-death experience at this point. It's I just noticed they put out a book, said 30 years of near-death studies, that just came out recently, which indicates, now here's the thing about near-death studies, it's really fascinating. The body in a near-death experience is clinically dead. Okay, it's not sort of dead or maybe it could be dead or not dead. It is dead, dead. Okay, so no heartbeat, no temperature, no eye reflex, nothing is measurable in there. Flatline, no heart, nothing. The body's cooling down, and this person's having some kind of an experience. And then after a certain amount of time, and can you believe this, up to 2 hours, the person comes back and said, I always like the story about the guy who was taken down to the morgue down in the bottom of the hospital and put into the cooler. And he woke up in the cooler like, bang, 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 let me out, They let him out. It was like almost 2 hours had gone by. He's completely back and his body was completely functional. So then you say, wow, what was your story? And then the story is the story about how the subtle body, whatever you want to call that, I'm not going to call it a soul, just say a subtle body is fully conscious and not only that, has full cognitive awareness. And the research shows, and this is fascinating, that cognitive awareness in near death is enhanced, not diminished, enhanced, being out of the body. It's improved. People's memory is better. They think faster. They can react more clearly. They have a greater psychic capacity, and this capacity sticks with them when they come back into the body again. They've been able to bring back a full account of what happened when they were out of the body, so to speak. So this surely supports psychic dreaming theory and the psychic idea that psychic dreaming is implicit and you can go on a true journey there, okay, in terms of where it can lead, So here's another feature, and there's a lot of features. I can't really go into all of them. I'm just picking a few here. So most common afterlife encounters, what they call in the literature AE, afterlife encounter, is a dream in which a person who has died has interaction with a dreamer and gives veridical information. Now, veridical information means you had a dream of someone who died. The person that died spoke with you and told you something that you knew nothing about, but when you woke up and checked it out, it was true. Okay, that's called veridical. So that's the evidence they always look for. They look for veridical evidence for psychic phenomena. Can it be legitimized? It's not a fantasy. And the person didn't know, and information is exchanged and given. So this is a typical AE research profile. Such information reflects not only psi capacity, but opens the question of survival. So, it's a big question, because if you start saying you die, then something lives and continues to go on, you've suddenly opened the door on survival theory. So how do dreams relate to survival theory? That's a huge question, because AE, afterlife encounter, is making the bridge between your embodied dreaming state and those who have died and are in communication with you. That's a huge leap there. Okay, it's not subconscious. It's something else. And this opens this ontological condition, which enables dreams and postmortem others to communicate through dreams. And from the developmental perspective, contact with postmortem, we don't want to call them dead if they're not really dead. So it's like the postmortem after the loss of the body. The postmortem, other entities, and not just the dead, but beings of light. I mean, in the NDE literature, they're filled with all kinds of stuff like, I was out of my body, I went out, I looked around the room, I saw what happened, I could describe what the nurse said, I saw she dropped the tool on the floor, it fell behind the counter, if you look, you'll find it there. I saw the red sneaker up on the air conditioning on the 3rd floor. I mean, this is the kind of narratives we're talking about. But then they say, and then I left, and I went on to some other dimension, some other realm, and I left this ordinary world behind, and I entered into something more complicated. I encountered beings of light, angelic individuals, the dead, and so on. And so it really opens the door in terms of what's out there, so to speak, and it suggests a hyperphysical cosmos, physical and hyperphysical, beyond the physical, but active, structured, has content, has beings, and so on. Who knows what the structure is? We'd all like to know, but it's open. It's an open window there into this larger dimension. Further, context suggests a form of dream mediumship and indicates telepathy as an operative means through which communication occurs. I mean, how are you communicating with the dead? Probably telepathy. That would be the most obvious way of thinking about it, telepathic communication. So I could keep going on, but I'm not going to, because I haven't really got to my real point yet. So dreaming capacities, here's a list of them. So if you were studying psychic dreaming, this is the kind of stuff you'd be studying. You'd be studying oracular dreams of the future, or past events, precognition, retrocognition dreams, dreaming of past life scenarios. What about all that past life stuff that comes in dreams? That's surely psychic, particularly if you're going to include survival theory. So we have a whole large database, and Ian Stevens at the University of Virginia is studying past life memory dreams of children for over 25 years and has a huge database. That site has over 25,000 past life dreams. So it's a huge collection. So past life dreaming is certainly a context for psychic dreams. Dreams of real events in distant places beyond sensory perception, clairvoyance. Dreaming together, here's a good one. Dreaming together, where you and one other person share a dream, and you both recognize that you shared the dream, even if it's not identical, it crosses over in such a way that's vivid. Okay, what kind of psychic ability is at work there? Some kind of telepathies, what? Something. We don't know exactly what that is. It links these two people together. Healing dreams, use healing energy to do something to someone and heal them. That would be a psychic dream. Contact with spirit powers, powerful numinous figures, beings of light. Dreams of moving objects with one's mind. Now here's a question. How many people have had a dream, and in the dream, through thought, you're able to move an object? See, there's a bunch. I see the younger folks are into that one. Okay, go for it, guys. All right, so move those objects around, exercise that ability. Okay, so PK, some kind of psychokinesis and dreaming, and including, as we talk, flying dreams and astral projection and so on. And then, of course, there's dreams of knowledge, in which you feel that your dreaming has taken you to a new plateau of insight or understanding that you feel you can't reach with your ordinary dreaming mind. It's like you have to go to another level of dreaming. And so those would all be related areas for research. So this brings us to our final fourth category. And then after this, we're going to take a break. And then I'll come back with the ontological theory. So, mystical ontological dreaming. Okay, so this is like, I would say 1% to 2%. I'm, again, just using myself as a database of dreaming that involves a Now, this is going to be a new language for you, so just go along with me, okay? So, this involves a participatory super-existent encounter. Okay, that's what I like to call it, super-existent encounter. An ontological affirmation of greater reality whose nature and influence results in self-surpassing knowledge, a direct experiential form of transpersonal absorption. You're not just out of the body. You're not just in an altered state. You're taking into something, you're going into you're diving into, you're being absorbed by something truly profound and beyond the ordinary psychological profile, something really deep. Dreaming of the most profound mystical type, a unique form of supernal dreaming. That's my term for it. This is how I got to this talk. I came up with this idea, the supernal dream. I thought, yeah, I like that, the supernal dream, you know. What is the supernal dream? It's an ontological encounter with deepest being. It's you know, you're sort of say God. I don't necessarily need to say God. I will say super existent being. You encounter it, you're absorbed in it, you're transformed by it. You have a direct, immediate, powerful experience of it. And it's transpersonal in its very deepest core nature. The contents tend to be transphysical, transpsychic, deriving not from the body or from the psyche of the individual, not from the psyche. Okay, that's an important point. I'm not saying this is some kind of subconscious upflow. This is something beyond the individual psyche, shaped by an ontological encounter, the very source of sentience and becoming, and there's a sort of list there of people who have been writing and working on that research. Such dreams are usually profoundly transformative in effect, unforgettable in impact, charged with superluminous energies not reducible to any material, mythic, or psychic cause. Now, I've had, I don't know, not too many of these, but I definitely have had some unknown number of these experiences. So I'm speaking in terms of my own encounter, so to speak. And these are unforgettable, superluminous dreams. As superexistent potential manifests in infinite capacity for enacted embodied knowing, there's no specific form for any particular dreamer. And though I will say this, experiences of light, supernal light, are common. That's one of the common features that people have these kind of dreams talk about. But you cannot predict, this thing, you cannot predict the content, you cannot predict the state. All you can talk about is the general features of the phenomenon, you know? The unitary basis of superexistent potential represents divine ground as a dynamic ontological matrix in which human agents, communities, and nation states share common ontological source. It's not culturally specific. I don't believe that. I believe it's a universal, as it were, and it is something deep, and it's beyond the mythic. It's not mythic. It's beyond the psychic. It's not psychic, even though it may have mythic and psychic expressions. It is something really, truly, deeply profound. It's a dynamic ontological matrix in which human agents, communities, and nation states share common ontological source for the enactment and development of diverse cognitive capacities. So you know what? Going there means it can be developed in a lot of different ways. What I'm not saying is going there results in a specific outcome. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying going there opens the door creatively on for all I know, an infinite capacity for actualization in all of our different cultural contexts. So it's not reducible to any particular form or any particular structure. These dreams, we have transpersonal psi. So we have explicit psi, we have implicit psi. So here's transpersonal psi. I mean, you can't take the psyche totally out of it, right? Because there's an agent in there somewhere. Even if the agent is totally submersed in light, there's an agent in there. So transpersonal psi is active as perceptions that reflect supernormal states metacognition, or mystical contents that tends to surpass explicit and implicit sight through ground of being perception as an opening to super existent awareness. It's not reducible, I don't think, to mythic forms, to some particular psychic types of dreams, but takes you up to the beyond that. And yet it's psychically active and alive. You're immersed in that field, so to speak. Transpersonal sight denotes a field of rich, meaningful contents, often transverbal, it's really hard to put this into words, in nature and expressed through various operational existential modes of embodiment that reflect states of being unique to and imbued with qualities of the sacred. By operational or embodied modes, I refer to saintly qualities. So let's say someone has this immersive experience, profoundly has it over and over to a point at which it actually becomes manifested through them. So they're like saintly or enlightened or have some special qualities, and that ground manifests through them psychically without needing to have a description of exactly what it is. Not simply an aura of holiness, but a direct felt sense of subtle determinative influence whose impact on others suggests super-existent source, an enlightened being. When people say, I don't know what it was about that person, but when I was around them, it had a profound effect on me. I didn't even talk with them. You know, I was in their presence, and it communicated something. So I call that super existent communication. It's something the person's not necessarily doing anything. They just are there. They're in that condition. The mystical supernal dream may occur in hyperdimensional context. It's not happening, I don't think, in ordinary space-time. It's happening outside and in and through and beyond ordinary space-time and leaves no significant physical trace. So you can't measure it. It's not to say you had an enlightenment experience and it can be measured. There's plenty of evidence to suggest it's immeasurable physically. I mean, think about the issue of NDE, right? NDE, it doesn't leave a measurable trace on the body at all. We have to count on the narrative to find out what happened. And I would suggest something similar, that it's not a matter of, you can arrange an experiment so you can measure the bodily effects of it. I'm not saying there are none, but I'm saying that's not the basis for the experience. It's not arising through the physical. It might impact the physical, but it's not arising through it. And it's beyond the body in the sense, transphysical. Genuinely mystical or supernal dreams beyond mythic and psychic dreaming reflect deep human capacity for acknowledging in a direct participatory manner the sacred ground of our species becoming. Time for a break.